Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study. Today we are beginning a new study in the second book of the Bible, the book of Exodus. Now we love the book of Exodus, do we not? It tells us of the story of God's great deliverance in the Old Testament. It is the book of redemption in the Old Testament. How God delivers His children, the Israelites, out of their bondage, out of their slavery in Egypt. How He brings them out a free people. How He brings them to Mount Sinai and enters into covenant with them. We love the stories of the Exodus. Moses at the burning bush, we love that so. The plagues God visited upon Egypt to redeem the people. The encounter at Mount Sinai when God in clouds and thunder and smoke descends upon the mountain and speaks to the people. The giving of the 10 Commandments. The rebellion later with the fall of the golden calf and how God deals with the people after that. We know the stories well. And we're going to enjoy in these next several weeks working our way through Exodus and seeing again this story of redemption. Exodus is, from our perspective, a very New Testament book. It foreshadows the great redemption God will provide for us all in Jesus Christ. For we also know what it is to be in slavery to sin. That is, we were in bondage in the Egypt of our sin, trapped and unable to free ourselves. And God delivered us. As He delivered the Israelites from Egypt, He delivered us by the blood of Jesus Christ from our bondage to sin. He made us a free people. He entered into covenant with us. The New Testament is, of course, the new covenant. So in the book of Exodus, we see all the wonder of salvation prophetically foreshadowed in God's great redeeming activity for Israel. The same activity He does for all of His children who will believe in Him. So it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful study. Now, when we begin the book of Exodus, of course, we're picking up where Genesis left off. You know, of course, Genesis is the book of foundations. It tells us the creation accounts. It tells us of the fall. It tells us of how God began to work with a family, calling Abraham. And out of his family, God said, one day through your descendants, I will bless everyone on earth. Prophecy of the coming of the Christ. How eventually we know this family will become a nation, the nation of Israel. Now, when we reach the end of the book of Genesis, of course, we find the family of Abraham. Now, of course, it's the 12 sons of Jacob and their families. We find them traveling to Egypt because of the famine that is upon the land. Joseph is there, a ruler of Egypt, and he welcomes them in, and they settle in Egypt. So as we begin the book of Exodus, they are in Egypt, and we're going to see how they come into bondage and how God begins His great work of redemption. Now, when the book of Exodus begins, it simply picks up with the children of Israel, now in Egypt. The first verse says, "These are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob and with his family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all." Joseph was already in Egypt. So the book begins telling us how the family migrates to Egypt and begins to live there. Now it's interesting, I think you'll find it interesting anyway, that in the Hebrew Bible, the book of Exodus is not named Exodus. In the Hebrew Bible, it's kind of common in these early books for the book of the name to be the first few words of the book. Now notice the first words of Exodus are, "These are the names." And that is the name of this book in the Hebrew Bible. The name Exodus came to be applied to the book many years later when the Old Testament was translated into Greek a few centuries before the coming of Christ. That was called the Septuagint translation. The Septuagint called the book the Exodus because the primary event of the book is God's deliverance of Israel from Egypt, their exodus from slavery into freedom. And so, of course, we still call it that today, the book of Exodus. But it begins by simply telling us that children of Israel are now in Egypt. Misfortune is about to befall them. Notice in verse 6 it says, "Now Joseph and all of his brothers and all that first generation died. But the Israelites, they were fruitful. They multiplied greatly. They became exceedingly numerous. The land was filled with them. In other words, over the years, they grew from simply being a family and a clan into essentially a nation. Then a new king who did not know about Joseph came to power in Egypt, and he said, look, these Israelites have become strong and they're too numerous for us. We must deal shrewdly with them, or they might grow even more and war might break out. They might join our enemies and fight against us. So they put slave masters over them. So we're told in Exodus that as the years had passed, the first generation or so died, the clan becomes a nation. It says a new king arises in Egypt. It probably means a new dynasty, a new group of pharaohs. And they look upon the Israelites not as friends, as the former dynasty had, but as enemies. And so they make slaves of them. So the Israelites, the family, had first entered Egypt as free people, welcome guests. They've grown to a nation, but now they have been enslaved and are in need of redemption. So the scene is set for God's great redemptive act to free his people. So as we look through Exodus, we're going to see how God does that and what that redemption, what that deliverance is all about. Hope you have a great day today, and I hope you join us each day for our Bible study in the book of Exodus. I'll see you next time.